where did this idea like, beyond bands? When did you start to think about, like, investigating this situation?
Yeah, I feel like the kind of stuff I write on or work with, the common thread, whether it's cricket or music or food, is that it's stuff that's popular culture, it's stuff that a lot of people like,
Hmm.
stuff that brings people together. I think like that always kind of appeals to me. Um, and I think, especially in Pakistan, particularly because of a lack of options for leisure and entertainment, um, uh, and all kinds of other reasons, like food एक इतना अहम हमारी शनाख्त का हिस्सा है,
Yeah.
right? Like कि सिर्फ ये नहीं है कि हमें बहुत खाने का शौक है. It's I think हमारी नजर में वो हमें डिफाइन करता है. और आई थिंक स्पेशली अगर आप मुल्क से बाहर जाते हैं तो वो रिश्ता जो है वो उसकी यू बिकम लॉट मोर अवेयर ऑफ इट. आपके दिमाग के अंदर लाइक द मिनट यू आर आउटसाइड पाकिस्तान यू ईटिंग फूड दैट यू आर नॉट अकस्टम्ड टू, तो उस पॉइंट पे आपको बहुत ज्यादा घर का खाना याद आ रहा है, हो रहा है, हो रहा है. ऑब्वियसली अब ये मैं जनरल बात कर रहा हूँ, सबका वैसा रिश्ता नहीं होगा फूड के साथ, मगर पाकिस्तानियों में, साउथ एशियंस में बहुत ज्यादा है.
Hmm.
और आई थिंक एक और चीज ये भी है कि ये क्यूजीन इतनी ग्लोबलाइज नहीं है, तो जब आप बाहर होते भी हैं तो आपको वो उसकी एक्सेस की कम और ना ही सिर्फ कम मिलती है, मगर it also makes you start questioning those labels, right? Like कि आप इंडियन फूड खाने जाते हैं जब अमेरिका में,
Yeah.
तो वो बेसिकली आपको पंजाबी कश्मीरी क्यूजीन मिलती है.
Yeah.
और वो भी मतलब पंजाबी कश्मीरी नहीं है, जस्ट काइंड ऑफ अडॉप्ट some of their tactics and approaches, where it's obviously bastardized for the West. And अब उसमें फिर थोड़ा सा कहीं पे कबाब मिल रहे हैं, कहीं पे निहारी मिल रही है, whatever. But it's something that kind of makes you realize, like for example, you think like why does all the chicken tikka look this red and whatever, and then you realize, oh, okay, this is tandoori chicken, and the
Yeah.
Punjabis in South Asia make it that way, and etc. तो वहीं से आपको थोड़ी सी मतलब ना अपने बारे में या अपने इलाके के बारे में थोड़ा ज्यादा समझ आना शुरू हो जाता है. I feel like in terms of writing on food, like when I moved to Islamabad in 2012, so I think
Hmm.
around that time I'd written this article on savor pulao, because
Hmm.
I think up until then मेरे दिमाग में ये था कि like ठीक बिरयानी पूरे पाकिस्तान में लोग खाते हैं, और ठीक है पुलाव भी मकबूल है और whatever. It just seemed like you know contrarian होने के लिए लोगों को पुलाव पसंद था. But it really kind of blew my mind, and then वहां से मुझे वो भी अंदाजा होने लगा कि actually पुलाव is the actual national rice dish of Pakistan, right? Like सिंधी हो गए, बलोच हो गए, पश्तून लोग हो गए, पंजाबी हो गए, like
Yeah.
pulao is, everyone has their own variants of pulao, etc. But I think like इसको investigate करने का ख्याल मुझे, क्योंकि और obviously ट्विटर पे सारे वक्त इस किस्म के झगड़े और बहस हो रही होती हैं, और बहुत सारी चीजें मैंने वैसे ही सीखी थी, लाइक आलू बिरयानी में होना चाहिए या नहीं.
Hmm.
I think that was something like I googled, and like I came across things, and so there was that interest. But I think really when I moved back to Karachi in 2018, so like like really around this time, one of my friends who's an artist, and a lot of her work is about mapping Karachi and various geographies. और उसने कहा कि why don't you tweet what people's favorite biryani are, and where they like to go, and I tweeted that, and I got like hundreds of responses, and we made an Excel sheet out of it, and we
Hmm.
started going to those places, और मेरे Instagram पे हुआ है, और जब वो मैं करना शुरू हो गया, and like again it was like obviously अब आप सारे मुख्तलिफ इलाकों में जा रहे हैं शहर के, और आपको उससे एक अंदाजा हो रहा है कि शहर कितना बड़ा है. और उसके फिर मेरे एक और दोस्त है अली अरकम, who's also a journalist, and he had this point, like he took me to Rangi for chapli kebab. और उस वक्त उसने मुझसे एक बात कही कि एक्चुअली कराची का जो फूड कल्चर है, तो इट वुड बी अ फॉली to view it as a collective, as
Right.
like one food culture. उसने कहा कि actually इसको ऐसा सोचना चाहिए कि, और not just food, और भी तरीकों में कि it's like 8 जजीरे हैं. There are 7, 8 islands of
Mm,
this city that each have their kind of own little culture and food
right.
culture, etc. Right? Or um, Hussainabad ki जैसे food street है is like a more recent phenomenon, and like basically उसने एक और नजरिया दिया शहर के बारे में कि इसको मतलब यहाँ पे क्योंकि इतने मुख्तलिफ किस्म के अब लोग रह रहे हैं, आबादियां हैं, इलाके हैं, तो उसको एक यू नो टॉप डाउन कलेक्टिव के तौर पे देखना कि ये कराची का फूड
Mm-hmm.
कल्चर इज इज अ फॉली.
Mm.
आई थिंक के तो उस टाइम पे उसी वक्त मुझे एक्चुअली, और मैं कहता मैं यूट्यूब पे भी काफी देख रहा होता था फूड शोज,
Yeah.
और लाइक एंथनी बोर्डेन ने जिस तरीके से लोग मुख्तलिफ शहरों और कल्चर्स और खाने के तरीकों को शोहरत दी, बट एंड इन अ वेरी social, political,
Yeah.
progressive kind of way. But even something like BuzzFeed का Worth It है, where वो burger खाएंगे at like the cheapest possible, at a mid range, and at the most expensive
Yeah.
possible. And it was really, there was all these really interesting ways to like talk about food. And I think कि यही होता है. um, One of the great things about the internet इसके खास तौर पे जब आपको मतलब एक्सपोजर की जब हम बात करते हैं, तो एक जैसे बहुत अहम चीज एक्सपोजर का जो होता है कि जब आप देखते हैं कि और लोग समथिंग दैट यू केयर अबाउट, समथिंग दैट यू इंटरेस्टेड इन, उसके बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, या उसके बारे में एक स्पेसिफिक तरीके से बात कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो जब आपको नजर आ रहा है कि लोग खाने के बारे में सिर्फ ये नहीं बता रहे आपको कि वो ये अच्छा है, उसमें तेल ज्यादा है या कम
Nah.
है, बट देर ऑल्सो काइंड इनटू revealing so much more through food.
Love
That's
it.
my cat.
Yeah.
तो उससे फिर आपको क्या कहते हैं, खुद भी फिर उस तरीके से सोचने का एतमाद पैदा होता है कि ओके, या आई कैन आल्सो थिंक अबाउट माय सिटी लाइक दिस, राइट?
Yeah.
um and so this actually like I think maybe by a few months after putting up those Instagram stories, I got in touch with BBC Urdu, and I said, can we do a show around this? And we actually went. And the idea was me and a celebrity or an interesting guest.
Right.
Didn't necessarily want celebrities. Go eat biryani at two different places. Into the people talk about like, what their place, how it started, what was
Right.
ये वो फलाना ढिमकाना. और फिर उसके बाद we talk about like whether we like it or not, but really talk about everything else also. So we shot a pilot episode with my Irfan Janejo, the internet's best friend, was the first guest,
Mm.
and क्या कहते हैं, it was actually shot by Abdullah Kusumbi. और उसकी एडिट के दौरान उसने मुझसे कहा भी कि मैं म्यूजिक पे भी काम कर रहा हूँ, मैं सोच रहा हूँ म्यूजिक पे काम करूँ, और उसको वीडियोस की जॉब्स आ रही थी. मैंने कहा भाई म्यूजिक म्यूजिक छोड़ो, तुम वीडियोस पे तुम्हें पैसे ऐसे मिल रहे हैं. उसने अपना एक स्टूडियो सेटअप कर रहा था. लाइक तुम
Yeah.
उस पे करो, म्यूजिक म्यूजिक साइड पे करते रहना. And then like 6 months later, like mashallah,
Yeah.
Abdullah Kasumbi was everywhere. So
Yeah.
goes to show what I know. Um,
This medium,
but
the show was supposed to be for YouTube.
yeah.
That's all.
We it was like a 10-12 minute thing. We went to Madni Biryani, and then we went to the Hyderabad colony one. And उस वक्त भी क्या कहते हैं, we kind of shot it, and we were kind of figuring out okay, like it was sort of as I said, it was a pilot, so फिर वहां
Mm.
से discussion हो रही थी okay, how to turn it into series or whatever. And it took a while. There were some changes happening on their end, and then COVID happened.
Right.
And so kind of this really fell apart. And at the end of last year, then, and I mean, in the summer of last year, Supriya Nair, the main editor and founder of 52, where this got published, the article, Supriya is one of the best writers I've ever read. And I first read her writing on football on this absolutely amazing website called Run of Play. And I was just like mind blown कि like एक तो South Asian football writing, and it was just like, best in the world
Mm.
level. I would highly encourage people to check it out. And so I'd followed her work, and then we'd like I'd written a music thing for the Caravan many years ago, and that was again working with Supriya initially, and we would, become friends online as well. And so she messaged me in the summer talking about like, of, I think 2019, talking about um, launching this website that is about working on, and that I think 2019, 2020, I forget the year, but anyways, or so I said, yeah, there's a music piece I have in mind, and maybe I'll do that. And then like I wrote to her saying like, bro, I just don't feel like working on music. And I think that's when like it pivoted to this biryani thing, because I realized, look, it's not going to be a web show. Maybe I can be a long form.
Mm.
And that was again like a really, really amazing thing to happen, because Supriya and then Vikram Shah, who worked with me on this as editors, were really essential to this whole thing looking and coming out the way it did. And right from the start, like they discussed, like, so I feel I should add that in 2018, when I moved back to Karachi, that was after 9 years of living abroad in
Yeah.
Lahore, Islamabad. And I felt very much that like, and being on Twitter also, I was joined Twitter in 2010. And so this entire time I was in exile from Karachi, so to speak. Or and something that was really infuriating was like, that there was all these like people from Pakistan, or people who know, Desis or whatever, and particularly Pakistanis, who had just this very extremely reductive view of Karachi, right?
Mm. Mm.
And in response, Karachiites would try and reply it with things like Karachi is beautiful and
Mm. Mm.
historical, and it's neither of those things, right? Like it's a pretty modern city compared to places like Peshawar, Lahore, Multan,
Yeah.
that are actually ancient cities. It's not beautiful,
No.
and like yeah, the beach is great or whatever, but there's a lot more to what makes this really amazing. And I felt it was very difficult to kind of explain that to other people.
Mm.
And so I feel this was a mission, even when I was conceived as a web series, was really to kind of show that like, okay, there's so many different diverse communities here. Like a friend once said to me that like, and landed on the airport, he was really surprised by how many different languages he heard just while waiting for a cab, which is not what you get in other cities,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that I felt was like a really great way of getting into like, oh, okay, this is why Karachi is interesting.
Mm.
तो ये जो मजमून की भी शुरू से नीयत यही थी कि ये दिखा सकें क्या कराची में क्या चीजें हैं जो like अलग हैं. और and over these few years when I was working on whatever iteration of this project I was working on, I keep Googling stuff up. And in terms of the history, it became very clear that in India, they were like very distinct, like Kolkata biryani, Lucknow biryani, Hyderabadi, Flana Dhimkana. Or यहाँ पे, when you talk about variants, you realize that people don't want the same variants that are Shan Masala variants. And like, is that what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
just was everything, like all our history is really muddled and undocumented. और तो एक वो भी एक दिलचस्पी थी समझने की कि मतलब क्योंकि अब इंडिया जाके तो आप वो बिरयानियाँ नहीं छक सकते. तो थोड़ी रेसिपी बुक्स वगैरह से बना के देखी और whatever, बट रियली ये समझना चाहता है कि अच्छा तो कराची में क्या,
Mm.
what is the Karachi variant, or what variants exist in Karachi. And over the years, like, I've been tweeting about some of these things, and whatever I'll put new, like, I was kind of storing it, I was watching stuff, and and I think that's something that like is really central to what made this a very satisfying kind of essay to write. क्योंकि क्योंकि इतना टाइम इस पे लगा था, तो बहुत
Mm.
सारी चीजें दिमाग में like independently I thought about them, or rejected certain ideas, or learned certain ideas, like ये भी था कि again, like जैसे कि when I moved back to Karachi, so when like I kind of reconnected with university friends there.
Yeah.
So one of the first things they did was this guy called Ahmer Naqvi, who's also runs Chop Chop Walk and other stuff, and he has a kind of like a biryani crew, and they're all kind of obsessed. And he's again like I think every time we met, I would just be talking to him about biryani. He told me about this guy on the beach who makes tuna biryani, which I really wanted to have. And they're the ones who him and another friend like took me to that Bambino
Yeah.
cinema wala scene. And yeah, this was again back in 2018 or something. And so like what also really helped was that like so many people are very passionate about food and particularly biryani.
Biryani, yeah.
And तो या सो जब तक ये मतलब लिखना शुरू किया तो उस वक्त एक बहुत क्लियर आइडिया था कि ये कराची के बारे में वो है। और इवन जब ये शो बन रहा था तो उसका मैं नाम रखा था कराची की बेस्ट बिरयानी। और अभी जो मैंने ट्वीट भी किए हुआ है कराची द बेस्ट बिरयानी, लाइक आई विल बी ऑनेस्ट, दैट्स रियली फॉर लाइक एसईओ पर्पसेस, राइट? लाइक सर्च कराची
Right.
बेस्ट बिरयानी, लाइक something should pop up.
Yeah.
Why not this? But it's really, there's no best in, I mean, I don't know if in anything, but like in food, it's a subjective thing. And like a lot of people don't like biryani, a lot of people like it a certain way.
Yeah.
And so it's really not important which is the best, but it is that like, when you find something that's telling you a story or multiple stories, like that's what really the intention behind this was, right? So कि जब आप उस जगह जाएंगे, उस किस्म की बिरयानी और उस बंदे की कहानी क्या है, तो आपको फिर बहुत सारी और कहानियां खुलती हैं,
Yeah,
राइट?
yeah,
सो जो जो मतलब एक वो था कि आप जो पहले चार किरदार हैं जिनकी मैं बात करता हूँ, वो मुख्तलिफ किस्म के व्हाट वी कॉल मुहाजिर्स,
yeah.
राइट? लाइक
Mm-hmm.
मैं उर्दू स्पीकिंग कहने लगा था कि बट देयर गुजराती स्पीकर्स इन दैट एज वेल,
Right,
सो
right.
दैट गिव्स यू अनदर इनसाइट इनटू द कंफ्यूजन एंड लेबल्स। मगर उसके बाद जो बाकी चार लोग हैं वो एक तो there's a guy from Chang, there's a guy from Bakhtulfa, there's Jamali Saab, who's Karachiite, but like Sindhi from like the kind of mainland Sindh, versus Fatma
Yeah.
Majid, who's from the coastal communities. And तो एक तो मतलब इसका एक वही मकसद था कि आपको दिखाएं कि कराची का डाइवर्स है, बट ऑल्सो कि इन सबकी जो जो बिरयानी के साथ कहानी पे जब आप तहकीक करते हैं तो आपको फिर इनकी लार्जर कम्युनिटीज के बारे में भी कुछ समझ आना शुरू करता है, राइट? सो
Right,
लाइक
right.
I mean, I think like probably the most exciting moment when I was working on this was ki, like I'd done so much research on the history of biryani. A lot of it was like really bullshit. And then like I found this one guy who I quoted a lot in the piece, Neeraj, I'm forgetting his last name, who really used primary text to get to the matter. And one of the things he's talking about, which um I don't want to get in too in depth here, but like there's a kind of this theory in North mein biryani separately evolved or South mein separately evolved, and he kind of trashes that and
Of
explains how
India.
it's like I mean, yeah, like up before 1947,
Right, right. North of
South
India, South of
Asia
India. Yeah.
is yeah. So and and he kind of explains like it's it's informing each other. And so one of the things crucial to it is that many theories are like it's the Arab जो ये Gulf है
Yeah.
उस पे जो Arab traders हैं coming these coastal communities on the South Asian coastline are introducing these meat and rice dish that evolves into the biryani. And then Fatma Majid tells me that, yeah, we've been making biryani forever.
Mm.
Versus Chef Jamali from Cafe Sindh and Sikandar Saab from Chan Masalas,
Mm.
both kind of explain how Sindhi biryani was an invention in the 80s. And Fatima Jeet, when she tells me this, it kind of like I was just like a euphoric moment, because I'm just like, holy shit, like this is that theory that the coastal communities had this version of the dish that kind of then is refined
Yeah.
and becomes a
Yeah.
biryani, and she's kind of like acknowledging that. And उसी तरीके से फिर आपको ये भी इसका एहसास होता है कि जो कोस्टल जो माहीगीर कम्युनिटी है कराची की, like that's the original Karachi,
Yeah.
right? Like जो कराची की origin stories है, um, माई कोलाची के बारे
Mycology,
में,
yeah.
वो मतलब इसी इसी माहीगीर कम्युनिटी के बारे में, राइट? एंड दैट्स रियली in the formulation of Karachi is not something that's at the forefront of the mainstream. And तो वो मतलब वो एक बड़ा खूबसूरत लम्हा था कि इसमें ना ही सिर्फ बिरयानी की तारीफ कि मतलब एक जो कन्वेंशन है, जो स्टेटस को है, जो लोगों को लगता है कि वो मुगलों ने दरबार में बनाई,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, which is not incorrect, but उसकी आपको एक गहराई समझ आती है। और सिमिलरली कि कराची शहर जो है, जिसकी कि कौन सी कराची वाला कौन है
Yeah, yeah,
और
yeah.
कौन अपने आप को कहलाता है, उसमें जो फर्क है आपको वो भी
Yeah.
नजर आता है।
Mm.
And that was really what I wanted to do with this.